Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. My name is Emmy. This is the 2026 Ins and Outs Witchcraft edition. This is an idea that I got from a buddy of mine, Sophie, the Midwest magician. I, like Sophie, am not a fan of winter being used as a time for resolutions. It's really a time to reflect. But if anything, I feel like doing ins and outs is a bit more about doing that reflection. So I'm going to be treating it more as looking at what I have been enjoying doing, things that I want to continue, things that I have kind of been phasing out already that I am feeling inclined to stopping with a bit more intentionality. I'll be alternating between ins and outs to keep it fun and whatnot, and also because as a Libra rising, I do operate with like that balance of it all. For every in that I had, I thought of an out that kind of complemented it. So that is something that I do want to make sure is reflected as we go along. So let's dive right in. My first in is only buy what I will actually use in my practice as opposed to hoarding it. And otherwise, I do really want to keep it a bit more simple. I want to focus on things that I'm making, really kind of have more of like a farm to altar kind of mentality. If there are things I do really want to buy, thinking very consciously about what those things are. Is it like a local maker? Or am I just hoarding stuff all over again? So thinking a bit more along those lines. And with that, an out that I have is neglecting my altars. That kind of goes hand in hand, I think, with the hoarding problem. I do just have so many things that are really stoked about buying. I do love to support my fellow makers, my fellow witches. And there were periods where there was something that was a big aspect of my work. And that's been phased out gradually over time. And I think it's time to just cut the cord and allow myself to just stop neglecting the altars. A part of this is doing a very intentional purge or allowing myself to finish certain things up, maybe with a community spell, letting myself use more in order to just get it out of the altar so that I can really revisit how I want things to be situated, because clutter for some practitioners is not a deterrent, but if things are busier, it may feel harder for me to come to the altar and to feel like I can actually pause and receive there. I have noticed that it's not uncommon either. I've heard this from my mentees, that there's a feeling of, well, if I haven't been keeping up, my deities must be mad at me. I do recognize that shame is mostly coming from me. The call is coming from inside the house. I recognize that, but I do think that if I know where it's coming from and I know that it is a hindrance, I do want to think a bit more about having either a schedule or thinking about what times of year or what lunation feels more ideal for keeping up with keeping it tidy. That goes for both deity altars as well as the kind of shadow work altars or glamour magic, so like personal development kind of things that I also have in some way. An in that I have is focusing on ancient holidays that align with my practice. I'm not trying to reconstruct, in part because I think the community can be a little mean girly, and there's some racism that also happens. I have not been on the receiving end up to now, but I know that it happens because I've heard it from my peers, from people who have come to work with me and say that they like that I'm a Puerto Rican witch who also happens to venerate the Hellenic gods, the Greek pantheon, Chthonic gods in particular. I do feel called to exploring those ancient festivals a bit more and thinking about how I can work those into my practice, build them into my calendar a bit more. But that does mean that a kind of lateral in as well is spending a bit more time making sure that I have a good grasp on where we are with the Attic calendar, the Athenian calendar, keeping better tabs on where we are there, because that does drive where these different festivals would be falling. And as somebody who I'm married to a Lutheran pastor, this would give me something to anchor myself, because a lot of these festivals are taking place around other Christian holidays or thereabouts, or it's a good way for me to have the experience that we would be possibly sharing together, maybe at a different time. So then we're able to still have parallel experiences while not having the same religious background. And it does feel as well a good way to embody my practice as a devotee, to think about how I could have my life be more about the foundation of my life is witchcraft. The foundation of my life is that I have a spirituality that I engage with daily. So I think that would be a good way to allow myself to have something to look forward to, something to help ground me with having relationships, being a part of a family where I'm in the minority for what I believe, how I venerate. I think that would really help to anchor me and gives me a little bit of a sense of maybe community if I do with other people, but also a sense of grounding and something to look forward to. With that, I do feel like an out for me is feeling pressured to keep up with the wheel of the year. I am a Libra rising, so there is, I think, the acknowledgement that we have a flipped chart. Some perspectives hold that we're upside down. Let's say my third house is Sagittarius and the third house is Gemini. So at times I feel like I want to be more Mercurial in Jupiterian times and then more Jupiterian during Mercurial times. I feel that in the summertime, everybody wants to go out as Yap City, but I want so much to be in a library unbothered. So there's that. I've had to figure out how to embrace the nuance of these sabbats, these wheel of the year kind of things. I like the solstices, I like the equinoxes because they are marking these pivotal points, but I have had to really consider what these things actually mean to me as opposed to feeling this pressure that I have felt in the past, like giving myself up to that pressure that you're not a real witch if you're not doing it. It's like, I'm on a different calendar. It's like, my chart's upside down. I've always felt like a little bit out of step in some way. And I know part of that is having a mixed background, being neurodivergent. There's also, again, the astrological layer of my chart. So I'm thinking about how I could give myself more grace and let myself explore what feels a bit more aligned. And for 2026, as I do want to focus more on veiling a bit more and maybe doing other work to help lock myself into my own energy a bit more, because I do know that it's great for protection. That is perhaps the most frequently used reasons. That's a big use case for veiling. I know it's common to offer veiling for Hades during certain times of year. If you want to work with the fates, that's also a great option too. We've been talking about that in Underworlding as well. There's also the element of, as a professional reader, there tends to be these times where I have back-to-back readings and then it takes a lot out of me. And I think it would be good for my spiritual hygiene to do that during readings more, for me to do that on a regular basis. I know that something that a lot of us former New Age core people have internalized of like, oh, I'm an empath. I can't help but feel other people feel. It's like, no, you just don't have great energetic boundaries yet. And that is absolutely something that has been true for me. So it's something that I do feel called to working on in 2026. I do want to let myself hear me better. I do want to feel like I am trusting me more and listening to myself more, getting clarity in messages as well, I think is crucial, because sometimes I think I'm picking up on all of the interference of other people that I'm not really considering very well what it is that I want, what I feel called to doing. That's something that I have clocked in how I was approaching Patreon, and that's part of why I've made the changes that I've made to how I show up there. It felt like I was putting myself too much in a box. I have phases, I have things I love to do. Emmy loves an era. I'm not necessarily a Swiftie, but Taylor Swift is Sagittarius sun, so that's, a very Sag sun way to approach your life. It's very mutable. I am somebody who has many mutable placements, so I am letting myself embrace that more. But I think with that, part of tempering your mutable energy is letting yourself lock into yourself more and to be able to be better protected. Veiling is a part of that. And of course, I do want to continue to have a more devotional life. I never want to treat my deities, the gods I venerate, as props. That is a reciprocal relationship. So I'm trying to think about what I can also do that is in devotion to them. And ultimately, I know these are all things that they want me to also work on too. So there's the acknowledgement that I think it would be good accountability for me to make it more of a priority this year. Out for me is overhyping every lunation or major transit. Because let's be real, I know a lot of people really don't care for Pluto in Aquarius, but as somebody who has a very thick Capricorn stellium, it was a relief to have Pluto not there anymore. It was a relief as somebody who does not have anything in Aquarius. I know that there's maybe a few asteroids in there that I forget the name of. I have fewer fixed placements, so there's no square going on. But having the heaviness of going through your Saturn return with Pluto right there is not something I loved. So there's a lot of me focusing at the time on paying attention to these transits because I was really surviving them. I have a good amount of empty houses. So there's that layer of knowing that these major lunations, everyone's like, oh man, this big bad moon. It's like, oh, it's fine for me. I know it's not the case for everybody. That's why I try not to take a doomsday or black or white kind of approach to astrology or the transits. I will make sure to relay if things are kind of looking a little bit rocky. So I will name like, okay, it might just be a bit more tense. That is the nature of the celestial bodies. It's the nature of life. We make it work and we come out of it on the other side in the long run. So that's my feeling is every moon is the worst, craziest moon. I know that eclipse season is a lot, but there have been some eclipses that I was able to breeze right through. There are eclipses that really rocked me. So I'm not, as a practicing astrologer, I want to be informed. I want to learn about what's going on. I want to evaluate it in relation to me and the collective. But there's no more being like, oh man, this is going to be the roughest whatever. The only ones that I'm like, yeah, that does tend to be rough regardless is a Mars retrograde. A Saturn Cazimi could be rough, sure. But otherwise, the big end that I want for everybody is nuance. I want everyone to want nuance in 2026 so badly. That might be too big of an ask for some people, but that's that. An end for me for 2026 is hyping up the preparation for a ritual or a festival. So essentially that buildup then becomes an extension of the rite, that there isn't this feeling of like one and done, that it's all you're building, and then you're so worried about what happens in that one moment versus treating everything leading up to it as the building of energy. And that is all important and valuable. The things that you're feeling, what you're envisioning, how you want things to come together or what you're wanting to manifest or draw in, that I feel is all a part of the ritual. It's all interwoven together, that these things all build together versus it's all about this one thing. And out for me for 2026, witchy rage bait. Falling for it, responding to it, maybe even engaging in it in the heat of the moment. There's no need. I often feel that if it's unintentional, like people responding because they're worked up. I know that it's a matter of people feeling out of control, and it gives them a way to verbalize, to externalize what they're going through. That's all well and good. What I've been seeing online lately, no one's a stranger to me feeling like Threads is a cesspool at times, where right now it's great because it's all like heated rivalry, whatnot. But every so often it's like, all right, it's time to have a massive takedown of somebody who took accountability for what they did. And we don't want that actually. We want punishment. So we're just going to make it a pile-on. And in turn, there are plenty of people out there who should be held accountable that there's crickets, but instead we're talking about how, oh, if I see one more person talk about human design, blah, blah, blah. If I see one more person talk about the Akashic Records, I'm going to scream because it's all fake. It's like, okay. I'm very much of the mind that, sure, certain new agey things have shitty roots and we should acknowledge them. But also, this is also the entry point that a lot of people had to begin to develop their practices. It's where a lot of us felt like we could begin to explore and we were able to make it more our own or find lineages or resources that are more aligned with how we want to practice long term. I could appreciate the desire to want to hold people, again, accountable for when they have caused harm or when things have like maybe not great foundations, but that does go for everything. There are folks that are hoodoo voodoo that are wonderful human beings, and there have been some trash people who have done it. So it's not for everybody. It's the nature of having a spiritual practice and still being a person that brings your human reactions and whatnot to the equation. So I'm very much committed to letting myself throw my phone away. Maybe I need to occasionally offload threads or mute certain accounts, be committed to that. Any of this witchy rage bait, I am just over it. I think that the hot take culture was fun for a while, but it's quickly devolving into what can I do to upset people? What can I do to help be the algorithm so then I remain relevant and people still see me as a subject matter expert? But the thing I would worry about then is like, yeah, I know we're all playing the game, but at what point do you just become a bully? So that's out for me. I do want to focus on continuing deep learning and applying what I learn in real time. So depth versus breadth, not just signing up for courses or classes or workshops, getting caught up in the FOMO. I am just so tired. And it means that I amass text resources and whatnot that are just not aligned. I'm not using them, and it's speeding all of the other things I've already talked about. And with me being in a 12 house year for my perfection year cycle, with knowing that my year is being ruled by Mercury, I do feel very drawn to going deeper, exploring more, learning. Another reason why I made changes to my Patreon, because I feel the draw and the call to be more in teacher mode. And I enjoy offering my perspectives on things. I was talking to my mentor about this, that I really don't want to be known as a guru, but I do want to be known as a contributor. And it's important for me to offer what I can of what I'm learning. And I do believe that we have this pitfall in the community where people are making mistakes or they're acknowledging that they've done things that they regret in their practices. And they do feel like, oh, I effed that up. Is my life in danger? I'm a bad witch. I shouldn't have done that. First of all, no. The occult is not safe. Witchcraft is not safe. And that is okay, actually, because you're manipulating energy, you're manipulating your will. Every action has a reaction. And it's not meant to be a way of saying like, oh, if bad things happen to you, you deserve it. I do believe it's about tempering and gaining awareness. For instance, a lot of baby witches, I hate that term, but it is what it is, began with doing love spells, or they did a love spell, or they trying to manifest something, or what have you. And they regret doing that. The lesson taken from that is not to never practice witchcraft again. It's that you should really consider whether or not you want to do a love spell again, or you have to weigh what criteria you want to create for yourself to make sure that you don't repeat certain mistakes all over again. Or if there was a matter of your protections weren't good, thinking about what you can do to better prepare yourself for the next time that you go back to the altar. There's no better teacher than doing the wrong thing. There's no better teacher than making a mistake and then going, okay, how do I fix it? How do I ensure I don't do this again? How do I move forward? I really do want us to think about not letting mistakes be something that makes us feel like we're a failure as a human being or that we shouldn't be witches. The mistake making, I think, is a part of the process. But again, I think that goes back to the previous point of no more witchy rage bait, that I think that we need to have more kindness and compassion for each other in the midst of the rough world that we're all living in, because a lot of us are just doing our best. And if we actually try to have real conversations with each other, I think more people would take these mistakes as the gifts to do better the next time around. I noticed this one like tangentially, but to like put a more fine point on it, I do want to ensure that FOMO is not driving my decision making. No more trends, no signing up for something because I feel like, oh, I gotta keep up, or oh, all of my witch friends are doing this one thing. I should be doing it too. I am so tired of doing that. And that I think can also facilitate making mistakes, because the core of witchcraft isn't about whether or not you do something right. It's about whether or not you believe. There isn't this deep belief that what you're doing will work, then it's either not going to work or it could potentially backfire. So that is another layer here as well for if you're doing the deep learning, if I'm doing the real-time work, if I'm letting myself investigate in real time, and I'm only saying yes to things that are aligned and ultimately saying no to things that make me feel like I gotta keep up. And then I feel like I'll overall have a better handle on how to manage the ups and downs of my practice. I want to ritualize my time outdoors more. I have been doing this a little bit naturally by virtue of if I'm going on a cemetery walk, there is a ritual element to it. If I am going to the water, like going to the lake, or when I was in Salem for Salem Witchcraft and Folklore Festival, I did go to the ocean and put my feet up in there, and it was incredible. Highly recommend. It was deeply sacred. So that's something that I do want to make a better point of doing, is these moments that I know are hobbies, are already enjoyable for me, that already have a layer of spirituality, allowing myself to ritualize that time more in this new year. I love to hike. I love to be outdoors. I just feel like I tend to forget to do that. And sometimes you got to have a reason to help you commit to doing it. So if I'm thinking about offering a hike to Hermes, then it might be easier for me to commit to doing that as opposed to continuing to put off the drive or finding something else to do. It's a lot of work to go find certain places to hike in this area. It's not too bad, but there is a lot of planning involved. But I think, again, there's a layer of accountability that I think would help me go do it and then also make it more enriching as well. So I do want to keep any kind of Wiccan or other traditions out, vague language, when I mean something else as an out for this year. What I mean by that is there are some terms that I feel like I still kind of use that do have roots. Work on saying what I mean. And I flagged this already with the rage bait one, which is I felt more comfortable becoming a medium, a channeler, by using the Akashic records. That was my entry point into them. And as time has gone on, I don't necessarily have to open them or do the prayer or whatnot in order to facilitate being able to channel effectively for people. Because I've noticed that in some of my readings where I'm channeling deities, I don't necessarily need to open the records to be able to receive things. There's the most clarity by doing it that way. I am kind of feeling this call to evaluate if I do want to consider myself an Akashic Records reader first and foremost, if I call myself a channeler, but that's also kind of vague. So I do want to think more in the new year about specificity, about clarity, about what it is that I am harnessing, doing, and allowing myself to claim what I actually am more effectively. More music for the gods is also on my in for 2026. Namely, I do want to begin to collect more vinyl records that I'll play for them. And I have a lyre, and I have enjoyed tinkering in general because it just sounds beautiful. But I do want to play my lyre more for the gods in the new year. Mostly it's been like Lord of the Rings songs, and so far it's been appreciated. But I'd love to branch out and see what more I can do because I love playing instruments. I am very okay with being bad at something to figure it out. So it does feel like a good personal hobby as well as something that I can offer in a spiritual context as well, or even bring into ritual. My last out is going into a ritual or spell with no plan. That is a big one. I do really want to emphasize for other people as well as myself in the new year that it's okay to not do something if you don't know what to do, because ultimately it's going to only make you feel more confused, or you're going to feel frustrated. You're going to be beating yourself up like, oh, I keep trying to manifest whatever and it's not working. That's an awful place to be in. And that's also not terribly kind to yourself. I think it's better to not practice or to not fire a candle or do whatever if you have no clear sense of what you're doing or you have too many ideas. So paring it down is also a goal. So that's all for my ins and outs. I want to tag Diana, the Waning Moon Witch, Lady K's Apotheca, Captolia, Aaron, the Alchemist. That's that for now. If you do feel called to it, and I haven't tagged you, please give it a go. I love to know what your ins and outs are. I want to take a moment to thank my patrons for sponsoring this video. A special thank you to Georgia, Karena, Jess, Laura, the Wowells, and Mallow. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have a beautiful day. Bye for now.